Hi, my name's Ian Wallace, the Messed Up Counsellor. What I'd like to do in today's podcast is talk about something that's going to be topical in a few days' time, which is Christmas and the Christmas celebrations and the family traditions and all the things that we're going to be diving into or not, as the case may be. Xmas is a great time of year. I don't want to put a downer on it, but for some people it's not. For some people it's a time of reminiscing, of thinking, of exploring. Maybe people who are no longer here in the family, maybe people who've passed over or left or detached. It's a family occasion, and if we haven't got the family around us we want, it can be a really lonely time. Probably, as some people say statistically, when they do these kind of polls with certainly older people, a very lonely time. Because when people are reaching out for families, connecting with families, getting back together, that's great if you've got all those things around you. Absolutely fantastic. But it also makes us look at the other side of the coin if we haven't got that family around us. So a lot of people go through a fair bit of emotional, distraught process at Christmas. And which is why people do things like, feeding people on Christmas Day at community centres and organisational processes to get them involved, to get them connected, to have a social process. But when we're looking at Xmas and we don't have those things, then it can create a ripple. Certainly if somebody's not there who we would like to be there. Because part of us wants to celebrate the Christmas, mostly if you're a parent for your children, to be fair. It changes when they leave home, usually, unless they go back together for Christmas, because they have their own Christmas to organise. But when the family unit has changed, altered, people no longer there, maybe second families, third families, blended families as we call them, then that aspect of somebody not being there, as I say, we get involved in that celebration of Christmas. But also makes us reflect on that, the ones that aren't there. And that can be awkward because we try to make it a celebration with some kind of emotional remorse. When we're looking at that time of year, those kind of things are happening around us. We don't sometimes want to think about it, to be fair. We want to just get on and enjoy it, do the celebration, parties, Christmas meals, which go on for days. When I was in, a long time ago now, when I first started my working career, I was in supermarkets because I didn't know what to do with my life and my world. And we used to have supermarkets in those days. If there's anybody under 40 listening to this, you will not believe this. We didn't open all the way through the week. We didn't open certainly on Sundays, and we didn't open on holidays, bank holidays, kind of thing. And it all changed as I started growing up and becoming less connected to supermarkets and more connected to life. But we used to kind of like find that people would shop for 2-3 days, and they may have a small basket. Nowadays, people shop as though they're shopping for a month. I see them walking out at supermarkets with baskets that's actually full to overflowing with stuff, which is quite surprising, really, because usually the shops are open the next day. But in this process of celebration and having a life and connecting to those things, when we see gifts and presents, when we receive gifts and presents, it can be really hard. I find people when they come into the counselling sessions where they have these feelings of, not good enough, a lower kind of process in life than other people give them. They question their connections, they question their processes of being connected if you like. And you'll say to them, and say with low confidence, self-esteem, and you'll say to them things like, well, how do you feel about receiving gifts, compliments, things? And they get very awkward with that. And usually they have some negative process. Well, I'm not too good with that. Okay. So what do you think receiving a gift is? Well, it's getting something. It's somebody giving you something. Yes, it is. Absolutely. You get something from it, and you can either celebrate that and say, oh, thank you very much for that. It's lovely. Even if it's a jumper you don't like. It's lovely. But you can also then say, oh, don't worry about me. Give it to so-and-so first and do this and do that and do the other. And we put ourselves down and make ourselves less than in some way, shape or form. Not only we removing that celebration for us, how we feel, we're also then, in some sense, putting down the person who gave us the gift. So if we say, no, don't worry about me, I'm okay, you don't need to do that, all those kind of things. That's not just Christmas, that's, cafes, restaurants, anybody giving us anything really. Then if we say that, don't worry about me, don't think about me, we're actually disrespecting the person that gave us it. Because we're saying, well, you shouldn't have done that. So they turn away from that process, feeling less than as well. They're not celebrating giving you a gift. They're internalising that process of, well, you don't like me. You've rejected me. Those kind of things. So when we're going through this process of Christmas, just be mindful that not everybody is having the same Christmas as you, if it's a great Christmas. There are people, and possibly people in your family, who are not necessarily having such a good Christmas. Statistically, we tend to find a lot more people die at this time of year as well because of cold, bad weather, pneumonia, illnesses. And that then can create a whole range of different emotions and feelings in future Christmases, future years. And we don't know really how that affects everybody because we're all individuals. So we need to have a conversation, a communication. We need to talk and explore these things to see if those things are there. They might not be. Everybody might be happy and everybody might be okay. But if there's somebody that's not there who should have been there, likely as not, we will be thinking about them and we will be sad because they're not there, usually. But then we might overcompensate. We might drink more than we should. We might eat more than we should. We might replace those longings of that connection that we're not getting with food or drink. Food and drink are interesting processes because, yes, they nourish us, they make us live, they keep us going, give us fuel, all the rest of the stuff that we get from food. But food also has a connection with giving, with food is giving. And that basically comes from when we're born. We usually get milk from mothers, for example. So there's an emotional process with food, which is not easy to get away from because it's kind of programmed right away from day one, first hour sometimes. I think most people hold the baby to the breast to get a connection. So that process of food is interlinked. It's part of nurturing, nourishing, giving us fuel, but it's also part of an emotional, loving feeling. So sometimes when we're having lots of food at Christmas, we need to be mindful that if people have a problem with food, and a lot of people do, with anorexia, bulimia and those kind of things, definitely, but sometimes just by their nature and their eating process, that we need to just not necessarily put them in a place where they feel uncomfortable. So although food is good, food also for some people can be an extremely painful process. And we don't see that as much, possibly, unless we're aware of it. But a lot of people, we're not aware of those things with them. So if people do feel uncomfortable, then they will tend to isolate themselves. They will tend to go off and do their own thing, which is not bad. People sometimes want their own space and place, quite naturally. But we need to have a conversation about that, not in a way that targets them. Why are you not eating? Kind of a process. But an exploration of what are you doing? Where are you? What's happening in your life? Because that process may engage with an issue around food. That feeling of not loved or not connected. Or not connected in a positive way, should I say. As we work Christmas and New Year, I don't want to put a downer on the occasion because it's a lovely time of year. I enjoy Christmas, I really do. Probably the electricity company enjoy my bill at the end of it, I would think. But we do need to be mindful of the people that are not having that time of their lives. It's not a holiday process. It can be a really hard time for a lot of people. And as we look through that, as we see that, as we explore that with them, then maybe the communication, the feelings and emotions that they're having, that we can explore and talk about and share, can make us more connected. And Christmas should be a time for connecting, should be a time for people coming together. But the more we communicate those things, the more we talk together honestly and openly, the more we will feel connected. So communication is a really, really helpful thing at this time of year. Reaching out to the people around you, even if there's been issues and problems and miscommunications and all the stuff that goes on around families, which tend to upset the family process. Try and make this Christmas one where you do reach out. You just say, hi, how you doing? Reconnect. Because chances are that will make a different process at this time of year, more than possibly other times of the year, to be fair. Christmas is a very wonderful, strange and exciting and frustrating time of year for us in all sorts of different ways. But if you can reach out, if you can talk to these people, if you can share these ideas with them that they are wanted and needed, maybe then, I don't know, next Christmas could be a different process. They may feel more connected, more involved, more loved and cared for. It is a reflection time of year to look back, see how the year's been, coming to the end of the year. So we do reflect at Christmas, which is a good thing, obviously. And we reflect on the things that we've enjoyed and the things that we've not enjoyed. So in that process of coming together, of finding that way forward, maybe just drop them a message, give them a ring, send them a text, send them an email. Those things don't usually cost an awful lot. And you never know. They might be on the other end of that thinking they'd like to do that for you, to connect. So maybe you'd start the ball rolling. I'm not saying it's going to make everything wonderful. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's the be-all and end-all, the kind of golden nugget of making the world wonderful, because the world is not always wonderful, I'm afraid. But it might start a process of reconnection. I don't know where that would go, obviously. It might produce a really connected or reconnected process. It might produce issues and problems. They may reject you. They may not answer you. They may not send that message back. But at least you've tried to do that. You've tried to engage. You've given them the option. You can't force people to engage, obviously. But you've given them the option of engaging, of being there, of connection, and that process. And at least then, you're not the one that's at fault or blame. You're not the one that started a process of disconnection. You try to start a process of reconnection. Families are wonderful things and very frustrating things and very challenging things sometimes, as we all find out. But Christmas, it's a different time. It's a time for trying to engage and make it a different process. And if we can do that, if you can do that, then you never know where it might go. It might produce nothing, but it might produce something. And even if it's having a conversation about somebody who's no longer there, for whatever reason, at least you're bringing their memory back, their ideas of that person, and maybe making awkward conversations a bit easier in the future. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are this Christmas, I want to say thank you to all of you who have downloaded the podcast and have looked at it. And hopefully, from the feedback I get, some people find it very helpful and interesting and made some changes. Not the same for everybody, but everybody who is watching this, everybody who's interacting with me this last year, because we're up to the year of podcast now, which is great. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you found it in some way helpful, because that's why I do it. I don't do it for gratification, just to try and help people have a better life in some way, shape or form. And hopefully, thankfully, the guests that I've had on this year have been interesting as well. And I say thank you to those people because they've made it interesting for me as well as you. Because I get something from every interaction I make. Something happens of evolving, more information, more knowledge, more understanding. And have a great Christmas. And hopefully a good new year. That'll be the next podcast. Motivation on New Year resolutions. That's an interesting one. The self-help books come out in January. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being there. My name's Ian Wallace. I'm the Messed Up Counsellor. Take care and enjoy.